Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Inside Microsoft Teams. I'm your host, Stephen Rose, and thanks for joining us. And we have another feature focus. On our feature focus, we sit down and we chat with two MVPs who take a feature that's been released in the last 90 days and talk about why it's important and why you should take a look at it. Why? Because we've had well over 400 features that have been released in the last few months, and it gets a little overwhelming. Our first MVP today, Nikki Chapple. She's an MVP and Principal Cloud Architect at Cloudway, joining us from the UK. Hi, Nikki. How are you?
Hi. Thank you very much for inviting me today, Stephen.
Of course, we're excited to have you. Now, I'm reading this, but this has to be wrong. It says that you've only been an MVP for a year, yet you've been in community for ages. You and I have run into each other several times. Is that really correct, that you're now just becoming an MVP?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, only since the beginning of this year, actually. So, yeah, no, it's like a dream come true.
Well, it is well deserved. You've done some great work in the community. We're excited to have you here. What feature are we going to talk about today?
Well, actually, it's one of my favorite new features that's come out. It's all about the Teams meeting co-organizer role.
And why is this important? I mean, I know that some people have assistants and this allows them to set up those meetings without having to be part of it. But why is this so critical?
I think it's critical because you've got meetings of different sizes and different purposes. So there's kind of, I think, three key reasons why I think it's really useful. One is those secure meetings where you really want to control the access and make sure only the right people join at the right time and have the right controls. So having that co-organizer as that additional person to help support you in the meeting is really useful. The second one is where you've got the C-suite and you've got those executive assistants that are managing the calendars and the diaries of other people. Again, they can manage and set up the meetings, and then you can have the co-organizer role with that again. So they don't necessarily need to join the meeting. Someone else can manage it. And I think the third area where it's useful is where you have training sessions. So often somebody will set up the training session and then you might have somebody else coming in and running it, particularly where I found out in different time zones. I don't want to get up in the middle of the night if I've got to set up a meeting in Australia, for example. I'd much rather somebody locally did that for me.
All right, well, let's take a look at the demo.
So you create a Teams meeting just as you normally would. So here I'm calling it a project meeting, and you add the people you want to join the meeting. So in this example, I'm inviting a couple of internal people and an external people. So that's step one. Now, the important thing for a co-organizer is to go back in and open it up, those two arrows. Then you've got an option at the bottom to select your meeting options, or at the top. So now I've got the option to select my co-organizer. Note, I can only select from internal people. Also, I've now got that option of who can bypass the lobby, me and only my co-organizers. Also, you might want to lock it down further and say who you want to present. So again, you can control that down to yourself and your co-organizer. So you can just close it down. Now, if you're used to Outlook, yes, you can still do it from there as well. So you just open your meeting up again. You've got the option at the bottom, the meeting options, or at the top of the screen. Exactly the same screen pops up to control that access there. So now we want to join the meeting. So here we are, the project meeting. I'm going to join in as Megan, and she is the co-organizer of this meeting. So she joins as per normal, no different from any other time. But she has now got that co-organizer role, and she's waiting there for other people to join. So now I also invited Deborah. She wasn't a co-organizer, so she's just coming in as an attendee. See, because I'd put that control down as a co-organizer and an organizer only to bypass the lobby, Deborah has to wait until she's accepted. Now I'm in here and I've got all of these different controls in front of me as per normal. I can go in as the meeting organizer or co-organizer, and I can now configure those meeting options earlier. I can add another co-organizer. I can stop and remove chat. So here we can see under the people that I am a co-organizer and Deborah is just an attendee. I can also lock the meeting. That's really important for those secure meetings, only making sure those people can join in. The other thing is to check that Deborah came in and she can't share, whereas I'm a co-organizer and I can share my screen. So you've really managed to control that meeting, control who joins. I'm in control, and I can also end that meeting for everyone. So the main thing is to just make sure, create the meeting, then go back in, edit it. That's what you need to do before the meeting.
Awesome stuff, Nikki. Quick question. So can you promote someone who was not a speaker to become a speaker then once you've locked it down like that?
Yeah, so once you've got that co-organizer role, once you're in that meeting, you've got full control of who does what. So you can make an attendee and a presenter. You can make an attendee a co-organizer if you want to do. I think the key thing to point out is it's a separate role from the breakout room role. So that is managed by different permissions.
Agreed. Awesome stuff. Thanks, Nikki, for joining us. I appreciate it. All right, on to our second guest, Paul Robichaux. How are you, my friend?
Just grand, sir. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing well. Now, you are the opposite extreme. You have been an MVP for 19 years. I was an MVP for 3 years, and you were an MVP way before even I was one. So were you just get one on DOS at that point, on IRQs and ports? What were you an MVP on 19 years ago?
Man, I am so old that I was an MVP on Exchange before Exchange had Outlook Web Access, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was a connectivity and systems MVP back when we used to do that, which was the old networking and all of that sort of stuff before it went in. Things that are no longer exist, many of them, thank God, as we did that. So, wow. All right. So, Windows NT 3.1, all the good stuff like I do.
Yep. I was there for 3.1. I was there for Daytona. There are times when I miss it. That's...
Yes. But we don't need to do things like DC promote and all that sort of stuff and know that 9 is the pass-through IRQ. There are reasons this has moved on and changed, and that is
ancient tribal knowledge.
Ancient tribal knowledge. Exactly. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about new stuff. So as I said earlier, we went out, we asked MVPs, what are some of the most impactful features that have come out in the past few months you should know? And you chose
transcription and captioning. So, man, it's an odd feature to get excited about, but it's exciting from...
I'm very excited about it. I think it opens up a lot of really great opportunities in how we communicate.
It does. It does. This is a great example of something that's from, if you're deep into technology and you're just interested in the technical underpinnings of features, the underpinnings behind this and the stuff that has to happen behind the scenes to make it work is fascinating. But the impact on people is really what makes the difference, right? This opens up the content of meetings and presentations to people in brand new ways. And I think that's what I'm most excited about with it.
All right. Well, let's do a demo and then we'll talk a little bit more about it and we'll wrap things up. So let's jump into the demo.
Let's start with a fairly basic feature that's still pretty darn neat, which is the ability to have spoken captions appear in a Teams meeting, both for users on the desktop and users in the browser. So as you can see, I've got my screen split into two pieces. On the left side, I've got a user who's logged in with the Teams client for macOS. And on the other side, I've got a user who's logged in to the Teams client for Edge. So let's get both of them joined to a meeting. And I'll make sure to turn my microphone off when I join just to keep anyone like me from getting confused. So you see the meeting started. And I'll join with my second user now. And we have your basic Teams meeting where everybody joins muted. And if you cough or crinkle a bag of chips or tell the cat to get off your desk, you get a warning from Teams that your microphone is muted. Now, let's start with turning on live captions. So live captions in Teams are enabled at the tenant or organizational level, which is why we set up the policies earlier in the demo. But they're controlled by individual users. So every user can choose for herself whether or not she wants captions displayed in her individual meeting. I'll come here now and I'll turn on live captions. First for this test user. And then for my other test user. So notice when I did that, I got a black caption area at the bottom of both of these windows, but there's nothing in it because I'm still muted, so Teams isn't hearing anything. If I then unmute on this side as I speak, what I say appears as a caption to all the other users in the meeting. Now, I happen to be speaking English because I happen to be fluent in English, but I could change my language if the language that the meeting were being conducted in were something different. Very common where I work, for example, for us to have meetings that are conducted either completely in Danish or completely in Ukrainian, because our headquarters is in Copenhagen and we have a large development center in Lviv in Western Ukraine. So assuming that this was that type of meeting, I could come here and say change spoken language and pick a language. Now, the shameful truth is I don't speak Danish or Ukrainian, so I'm not going to attempt to show you either of those. But I do speak a little bit of French, and to the French speakers in our audience, I'm going to ask your forgiveness in advance. Mais maintenant, j'ai choisi la langue française. Eh bien, Teams traduisent ce que je dis. And we'll go back to English. But you can see Teams did a pretty decent job considering that I personally was trying to translate on the fly as I was speaking. Now, another feature that's worth talking about is support for PowerPoint slide translation in PowerPoint Live. I love PowerPoint Live. Use it all the time because it's a way better way to present to an internal or external audience than just showing your PowerPoint screen. And it's so much better than giving people the slide deck to pre-read that it's just not even funny. So what I've done is I've set up a meeting, and you can see on one side of the screen, you've got Alex Wilbur's presentation. And on the other side, you see the attendee experience for Alan DeYoung, my other test user. So let me just turn on live captions here. And as you saw earlier in the demo, when I speak and I have the mic unmuted, then you'll see live captions. Let me just turn the volume down on this other speaker. But what you haven't seen before is that I have the ability to change the language of the slides themselves. So as a speaker, let me advance through a couple of slides here. And as you can see, the native deck is in English, and the presenter is seeing it in English. If I come over here and click More Actions, Translate Slides, I can actually have the content of the slides translated, say, into Italian or into whatever other one of the supported languages I want to use. Let's go with French because at least I have some reading comprehension there. So this is a pretty good translation. Creating a connection, inspiring the fidelity to the brand starts by encouraging buyers to return for new models. How can we connect ourselves with the consumer? Now, I'm doing a little more literal translation than a native French speaker would, but as I flip through these slides, okay, notice that now, because I'm using PowerPoint Live, my attendees or the people in the meeting can be on a separate slide looking at completely different content in their native language. I can't tell you how valuable this is for audiences where not everybody speaks the same native language as the person who created the slides. This is immensely valuable for projects like the one that my wife works on, where she is a native English speaker working with people who are fluent in English, but whose native language may be Romanian or Swedish or Ukrainian. Not to mention the situation I'm in at work pretty much every day, where I'm working with people whose native language is not English, and I don't speak their native languages. So super useful feature built into PowerPoint. You don't have to do anything special to enable it other than to use PowerPoint Live in the Teams presentation mode and to switch slide languages. So that's it.
Paul, really great stuff. And I think what's important, and you and I were chatting before the show, is that not only is this great for people where English is a second language, or you want to make a meeting more inclusive, but also for those that may have issues like audio processing issues, or folks who just are better in reading what someone is saying because it makes it easier to comprehend. So there's so many great reasons. It almost seems silly not to turn on translation and transcription for folks in meetings.
It's so simple to do. The making that meeting content available to people in more ways is simple. There's no downside to it. There's one other feature that I didn't get a chance to talk about that ties into this, which is when you enable transcription, you get a transcript of the meeting and then it's searchable. So
Right.
for all the use cases where you're trying to remember, oh man, I know we talked about that thing, but when was it? This is just one more way to find what you're looking for faster. So
Yeah.
great feature. I love it. Turn it on, use it.
I often get multiple meetings that are scheduled at the same time. And what I'll do is if I miss one, I go in, I search for my name of the project I'm working on, see what was said then without having to go back through the whole meeting, take those action items and move on. So I agree. And you're going to do a blog where you'll dig into, if you're an admin, how do you set some of the stuff up, which I love. So I appreciate you taking time and for joining us today, Paul. This was great.
Thanks for having me.